I'm going to turn to Tom Watson.
Mr. Murdoch Senior, good afternoon, sir. You have repeatedly stated that News Corp has a zero tolerance to wrongdoing by employees. Is that right?
To me, yes.
In October 2010, did you still believe it to be true when you made your Thatcher speech and you said, "Let me be clear, we will vigorously pursue the truth and we will not tolerate wrongdoing"?
Yes.
So if you were not lying then, somebody lied to you. Who was it?
I don't know. That is what the police are investigating and we're helping them with.
But you acknowledge that you were misled?
Clearly.
Can I take you back to 2003? Are you aware that in March of that year, Rebecca Brooks gave evidence to this committee admitting paying police?
I am now aware of that. I was not aware at the time. I'm also aware that she amended that considerably very quickly afterwards.
I think she amended it 7 or 8 years afterwards. But did you or anyone else?
Sorry.
Did you or anyone else at your organisation investigate this at the time?
No.
Can you explain why?
I didn't know of it. I'm sorry. If I can just say something, and this is not as an excuse, maybe it's an explanation of my laxity. The News of the World is less than 1% of our company. I employ 53,000 people around the world who are proud and great and ethical and distinguished people, professionals in their life, and perhaps I'm spread watching and appointing people whom I trust to run those divisions.
Mr. Murdoch, I do accept you have many distinguished people who work for your company. You are ultimately responsible for the corporate governance of News Corp. So what I'm trying to establish is who knew about wrongdoing and what was involved at the time. So if I can take you forward to 2006, when Clive Goodman was arrested and subsequently convicted of intercepting voicemails, were you made aware of that?
I think so. I was certainly made aware of when they were convicted.
And what did News International do subsequent to the arrest of Clive Goodman and Glenn Mulcair to get to the facts?
We worked with the police on further investigation, and eventually we appointed, I think very quickly appointed, a very leading firm of lawyers in the city to investigate it further.
Perhaps I could help.
Well, I'll come to you. I'll come to you in a minute. I'll just let me finish my line of questioning, and I'll come to you. What did you personally do to investigate that after Mr. Goodman went to prison? You were obviously concerned about it.
I spoke to Mr. Hinton, who told me about it.
Okay. Can I ask, in 2008, another 2 years, why did you not dismiss News of the World chief reporter Neville Thurlbeck following the Mosley case?
I'd never heard of him.
Okay. Despite a judge making clear that Thurlbeck set out to blame 2 of the women involved?
I didn't hear that.
A judge made it clear that Thurlbeck set out to blackmail 2 of the women involved in the case.
That is the first I've heard of that.
So none of your UK staff draw your attention to this serious wrongdoing, even though the case received widespread media attention?
I think my son can perhaps answer that in more detail. He was a lot closer to it.
I'll come to your son in a minute. So despite the fact that blackmail can result in a 14-year prison sentence, nobody in your UK company brought this fact to your attention?
The blackmail charge, no.
Do you think that might be because they knew you would think nothing of it?
No. I can't answer. I don't know.
Do you agree with Mr. Justice Eadie when he said that the lack of action discloses a remarkable state of affairs at News International?
No.
Mr. Murdoch, a judge found a chief reporter guilty of blackmail It was widely reported. He says it was a remarkable state of affairs.
Why didn't he put him in jail?
Because it was a civil case. Were you aware that News International commissioned an investigation into News International emails by Harbottle and Lewis?
Was I?
Aware that News International commissioned an investigation into News International emails by the solicitors firm Harbottle and Lewis?
Yes, I didn't appoint them, but I was told of it happening.
You claimed in the Wall Street Journal that Harbottle and Lewis had made a major mistake. Can I ask what mistake you were referring to?
I think maybe that's a question again for James, but there was certainly, when we examined it, re-examined that, we found things which we immediately went to counsel with to get advice on how to present it to the police.
In their written response to this committee's questions, are you aware that News International stated that both John Chapman and Daniel Cloak reviewed these emails before forwarding them to Harbottle and Lewis?
No.
So that nobody in the company told you that two of your executives had reviewed the emails
I thought that I was under the understanding that everything had been sent to them.
Okay. You are aware that Lord MacDonald QC has since reviewed the emails again on behalf of News International, are you not?
Yes.
You're aware that he stated he found evidence
And he's reported to the whole board of News,
He did.
News Corporation.
And you're aware that he stated to the board that he found evidence of indirect hacking, breaches of national security, and evidence of serious crime in the Harbottle and Lewis file?
Oh, he did indeed.
Mr. Watson, please, I can address these in some detail if you would allow me.
I will come to you, Mr. Murdoch, but it's your father who's responsible for corporate governance. I'd like to ask what he knew, but I will come back to you. Who was aware of Harbottle and Lewis findings at News International?
He went to the senior officials of News Corp, certainly their top legal officer.
So Tom Crone or Les Hinton?
No.
No. Were you informed about it?
They were not the top legal officers.
Who are the top legal officers?
You can answer that.
Mr. John Chapman was the top legal officer at News International, and Mr. Crone was the head of legal affairs at News Group Newspapers.
And were you informed about the findings by your son, Mr. Murdoch, or by Rebecca Brooks?
I forget, but I expect it was my son. I was in daily contact with them both.
Okay. When were you informed about the payments made to Gordon Taylor and Max Clifford?
No.
You were not informed?
No.
At no point you knew that Taylor and Clifford were made payments as a result?
I never heard of
Okay.
the first one.
You never informed the Chief Executive of News Corp that you authorised payment of £500,000?
Would you like me to answer the questions now, Mr. Watson?
I'd like you to tell me whether you informed your father that you had authorised payment to Gordon Taylor as a result of him being a victim of a crime.
The settlement with Mr. Taylor, and I'm happy to address the matter of Mr. Taylor in some detail if you would like.
First, could you just let me know?
My father became aware after the settlement was made in 2009, I believe, after the confidential settlement had become public, as a newspaper reported on the out-of-court settlement afterwards. But please understand that the settlement of an out-of-court settlement of a civil claim of that nature and with that of that quantum is something that normally in a company our size, the responsible executives in the territory, in the country, would be authorized to make, and that's the way the company has functioned, and it's below the approval thresholds, if you will, that would have to go to my father as chairman and chief executive of the global company.
There are other questions I could ask on this, but there are other colleagues who have specific questions to you, Mr. Murdoch, about this issue. So I'll move back to your father if I can. Mr. Murdoch, at what point did you find out that criminality was endemic at News of the World?
Endemic is a very wide-ranging word, and I also had to be extremely careful not to prejudice the course of justice which is taking place now. That has been disclosed. I became aware as it became apparent. The first two, and then I was absolutely shocked, appalled and ashamed when I heard about the $1 million case only 2 weeks ago, 8 days before I saw them. It was graciously received by the Dowlers.
Did you read our last report into the matter where we referred to the collective amnesia of your executives who gave evidence to our committee?
I haven't heard that, but
nobody brought
I
it
don't
to your
know who made
attention.
that particular charge, but it's...
So a parliamentary inquiry found your senior executives in the UK guilty of collective amnesia, and nobody brought it to your attention. I don't see why you think that's not very serious.
Yes, but you're really not saying amnesia, you're really saying lying.
Well, we found your executives guilty of collective amnesia. I would have thought that someone would like to bring that to your attention, that it would concern you. Did they forget?
No, I took that as
Okay. Whilst it has been obvious to most observers from the summer of 2009 that phone hacking was widespread, you knew for sure in January of this year that the one rogue reporter line was false. Is that right?
I forget the date.
Why was Edmondson the only person to leave News of the World last January?
Mr. Watson, we have given all our files and all our knowledge and everything to the police. They have not given us the Mulcair diaries, so we do not know what was in that. And that there was a page which appeared to be addressed to him. But again, that's my son's.
Mr. Watson, perhaps it would be, and Mr. Chairman, perhaps it would be helpful to the committee if you would like to go through any of the particular detail around why decisions were made by the management team at News International and the precise chronology. It would be more helpful, perhaps, if I could answer those questions as the chief executive of the regional businesses across Europe. I have somewhat more proximity to it.
I understand the detail points.
I'm simply offering to help to clarify these matters, Mr.
Your
Watson.
father is responsible for corporate governance, and serious wrongdoing has been brought about in the company, and it's revealing in itself what he doesn't know and what executive chose not to tell him. So with respect to you, I will pursue my line of questioning and come back to you later. Mr. Murdoch, why was no one fired in April when News International finally admitted that News of the World had been engaged in criminal interception of voicemails?
It was not our job to get in the course of justice. It was up to the police to bring those charges and to carry out their investigation, which we were 100% cooperating with.
But in April, the company admitted liability for phone hacking, and nobody took responsibility for it then. No one was fired. The company admitted that they'd been involved in criminal wrongdoing, and no one was fired. Why was that?
There were people in the company which apparently were guilty, and we have to find them and we have to deal with them appropriately.
Mr. Murdoch, why did you decide to risk the jobs of 200 people before pointing the finger at those responsible for running the company at the time of the illegality? Your son and Rebecca.
When a company closes down, it is natural for people to lose their jobs. We have, in this case, and our making is continuing, every effort to see that those people are employed in other divisions of the company if they're not part of the small group, or I don't know how big the group, whatever group was involved in criminality.
Did you close it because of the criminality? Did you close the paper down because of the criminality?
Yes, we felt ashamed of what had happened and thought we were going to bring it to a close.